Hello, folks, and welcome to Alan's Viewpoints. I had an interesting thing come show up today when I was going through my different articles, and this has to do with civility in the United States. I'm going to talk about civility this afternoon or this evening, um, and how we have a complete lack of civility with against people who are trying to enforce the laws of this nation. So um, I don't know where it changed, how it changed. Uh, I've been watching this for a long time. Um it slowly started to change in the 80s. I would say it started to pick up steam, but in the 2000s, especially after 2010, we've seemed to lost all sense of wanting to deal with people. Um, I understand that we have our differences of opinions. We're going to have the right. We're going to have the left. I mean, I got two hands. I mean, one's right, one's left, um, and they have to deal with one another. They work together with one another. The question is, why can't we work together on the right and the left? And it really is coming down to how we interpret laws. Um, Laws are being uh, interpreted what I would say oddly or not at all. Uh, we have immigration laws. Biden's term, there's no immigration law. We don't need no stinking immigration law. Um, Trump, immigration laws back on the forefront. We need to enforce the immigration law. Well, there's multiple reasons of why you want to enforce the immigration law. First of all the extra illegals here cause inflation. I don't care how you want to write that. I don't care what you want to do. I don't care what the economists say. Oh, illegals don't create. Yeah, they do. Because when you have two illegals and two U.S. citizens competing for the same products and or the same housing, that housing price is going to go up. Now, if you have two U.S. citizens competing for the same housing, the house might go up a little bit, but not as much as when you have multiple people trying to compete for that. That might be rent, might be a mortgage. Second of all, why are we even giving a mortgage to somebody who's here illegally? That shouldn't happen. But what's happening is that corporations are buying up the houses, renting it to the illegals, making the houses unaffordable for especially the young generation coming out of college who already have enough debt on them. And that debt is caused by what? The fact that universities now charge what? $350, maybe $400 a credit hour? I went to school when it was $50 a credit hour. 30 years later, okay, I fudged that a little bit. It's 40 years. So 40 years later, you're now telling me that the university that I went to is valued 6 to 7 times more expensive than it was when I went to school? You're not getting that much for your money. Sorry. I'm sorry. My alma mater is overcharging people. So is every university, charging more than about $125 an hour. Not only are you getting that from the students, you're also getting federal funding from everybody. So federal funds are being passed out to the universities, whether it's through grants or just the fact that they have so many students. Uh, hey, we've got 48%, actually maybe 62% of our students are minorities, and so the federal government might be giving them extra money because you've got so many minority students on your campus. Uh, you name it, they find a reason to give the universities money. Then rich alumni donate and give funds and do things for the universities, create endowments. Universities are rich. Why would I say that? Oh, because many universities now have presidents who are making 500 to well over $1 million a year. And I'm sorry, no university president is worth that much money. Um, but that's my personal opinion. So uh, that's not news. That's my personal opinion. But when it comes down to it, is we've lost somewhere between everything from when I was in college to now, we've completely lost our civility towards one another. And whether or not that was the internet, whether or not that was just the fact that we could put cable TV became more prominent, and then movies and people stayed in instead of going out. Uh, don't know. I don't know where we lost it. At some point in time, we have lost it. We're no longer tend to be wanting to be civil with one another. Um, Police and trying to enforce laws, you end up with things like this. So ICE goes to do their thing, and along comes an ICE protester who fires at the agents. Now, from what I understand, it's possible that somebody lost their life here. I haven't been able to confirm that. It was in one. I saw it someplace on a news flash. It said somebody lost their life, but I haven't been able to find that article yet. So um, I'll say something once I do find it. But an ICE protester could be seen firing a gun directly towards federal agents on Thursday morning as a volatile standoff escalated to at a California cannabis farm. The moment was captured above as news helicopters surveying the scenes of chaos erupted. So what they did find, interestingly enough, here, and I don't think it's in this article, but they found 7 or 8 underage minors, children, out in the field. They are unaccompanied. If they're unaccompanied and nobody's claiming them, these kids are slaves. The question is which one of these illegal migrants was their handler, so to say, and controlled them. And this is what we've got. This is what we're asking for. This is why we have to really come out and say illegal immigration is horrible. But we've lost our civility. We couldn't even protest. Now, many of these protests, and you go back and you look at these things, Antifa, what's Antifa do? They dress in black, wear masks. They won't show you who they are. First Amendment rights give you the right to protest, speak out, say what you want to say. But if you're going to do that, show your face. Let us see who you are when you're saying it. Because many of these people that are hiding behind these masks, if they weren't hiding behind the mask, they wouldn't say what they're saying. But we've lost our civility when we have this happening. A protester shooting a gun at the police. I'm sorry. We have to find a way to reduce the number of illegals in this nation. By doing that, we're going to have to enforce immigration law. By enforcing that immigration law, it means going out and finding the people who are here illegally and rounding them up, putting them on a bus, sending them home. But the worst part about it is many of these illegals that they're finding right now have serious crime, histories of crime. And we need them out first, or in prison. Now the question is do we want them in prison in our country or prison in another country? And personally, I think they should be serving time in their own country, not ours. because every prisoner in our midst, in our own prisons, is going to cost us taxpayer money. So send them home. But back to what I was talking about really is the civility. And we don't have civil conversations. You can't have a civil conversation about immigration. You can't have a civil conversation about taxes. Oh, we want to tax the rich. Really? Tax the rich how much? Well, we got to tax them as much as we can. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just take all of their money? We'll take the top 100 people, the wealth from the top 100 people in the nation, and we'll take that wealth from them. How about that? Does that solve your problem? Now you have 100 people who are no longer wealthy. They're going to be at the bottom. Fair, right? Except for the fact that when you do that, the stocks that they have all their wealth in will go down in value. So they're no longer worth that $4 to $5 trillion total amongst all of them. They're maybe worth maybe a few hundred billion, because most all of them have it in stock. And as soon as you take that stock away from them, the stock becomes worthless. And the companies that have people hired will let people go. But it has to do with civility. We can't be civil about it. We can't. I mean, I've tried to have conversations with even my sister, who sits on the other side of the fence from me. There are some topics that we can get away with talking about, but for the most part, she can't talk about it. It's, do you realize if you can't have a civil conversation and you don't have any conversation at all, how do you get to know both sides and learn both sides of a story? So news media, I would think, has a lot to do with it, because the news media has gotten to the point where they tell you one side of a story, they don't tell you both. You watch any major news network, you go out there, you can find the information that tells you the other side of the story. The question is what do you want to believe? And I really believe that everybody needs to start thinking on their own and thinking outside the box, because nothing's a straight line. Yes, you want to go from point A to point B, that's a straight line. But sometimes to get to from point A to point B, you're going to have to go through point C and maybe F, and it might be several other spots before you get back to B. Or maybe the whole alphabet changes and you're going from A to N. A to N. Oh, wait a minute. That's my name, Alan. A to N. Okay. So we'll go from the beginning of my first name to the end of my first name. But it's definitely not a straight line to get there. You're going to have different things that you encounter and different difficulties along the way. You have to learn both sides of a story. And that's the big thing about this whole video and all my videos. It's to teach you to think outside the box. You know, we think of solar energy. Solar farms, great idea. Putting solar farms out in fields, cutting down forests to put up a solar farm, bad idea. Putting solar farms over top of buildings and parking lots, great idea. You have two effects when you do that. You're going to actually cool the environment when you put the solar farms over top of buildings and especially pavement in a parking lot. So, again, I want everybody to start thinking outside the box, not inside the box. We need to learn to be civil with one another. You know, going and sitting down and having a prayer session in like Portland, and then having Antifa come in and threaten them and start beating people up because that's what they feel like they want to do because they don't like it. They didn't have to go to the one place to do anything. They could have stayed away. But they can't remain civil anymore. Somewhere along the way, we've lost and we've forgotten to teach civility to our kids. Now, whether is that happening in school or is that happening at home? Maybe you don't have a chance at home. Look how many homes are now what I would call single family homes, a single parent home, which is horrible. And the government promotes single parent homes. Sorry, but they do. But yeah, we've got to figure out how we get back to a civil society, allowing both sides to speak. Instead of saying, you know what, I don't like your side, well, we're going to have to start beating you up. Now, I've not seen anybody on the right say that, but I have seen people on the left. And the people on the left are going, well, you know, we're not getting our way. We're going to have to become uncivil. Well, yeah, when you're threatening to kill people or threaten to beat them up or do whatever you're going to do, you don't like the fact that somebody has a Tesla, so you scratch it, torch it. Was that civil? No. You can turn your back and walk away. And trust me, I know more about this than most people do. I survived my childhood, which is pretty impressive. I'm 60 now. Somewhere along the way, I actually learned to actually do things. But my last name is Gay. So yeah, you heard that right. It's Gay. No E, no French spelling. So I went through high school in the late 70s and early 80s. And you can think about what I went through. The people going through school these days, if they went through half of what I did, they would melt down. This is why you need to learn to have some sense of humor. Because I got the best thing in the world, because I get to say I'm a straight gay man and get away with it. I have fun with it. I've been able to tell people, look, I've been gay all my life. What do you want me to do about it? Now I'm a straight. My wife is Filipino. But the fact is that you have to have some sense of humor in life, and you can't go through being all pissed off. If I took how I was treated in high school, and I carried it forward through life, I would be one pissed off individual. And there's no fun going through life being pissed off, trust me. So, anyway, we got to figure out how do we get back to civility. Protesters shooting at the cops. It isn't the only situation. We've had another one, and I'll do a video on it. Is where 10 people, the 10 people who actually shot and are being arrested for attempted murder. Really? That's how you're going to solve the problems? We're going to start shooting people? That's not a way to solve it. You sit down, you figure out if you want to change the laws, get the Congress to change the laws. Change the immigration stuff. Change it so that everybody can come across. Everybody can live in the United States and just sponge off of the taxpayers that have been here for years. I'm sure none of you want that. But for some reason, you want illegal immigration so you have modern day slavery. And that's not civil. That is the worst, most degrading thing that you can do to a human being. I don't care what color you are. If you think that illegal immigration is a good thing, you are morally corrupt, because those people are slaves. They might not be slaves to the business that hires them directly, but they are to the guys that got them across that border. Not to mention then, don't worry about it. We'll just send our wealth south of the border, because they're sending that money home. they're taking care of themselves. So when they do finally decide they no longer want to be here, they've done enough, they've taken enough from resources from the United States, they go home to their nice house and they live in their country, and that's it. And right now, I guess the place to live is El Salvador. And 25, 30 years ago, I would have never said El Salvador was the place to go. But it is now. But that took them enforcing their laws and people figuring out how to be civil with one another again. So let's hear it for civility. I hope that we can all sit down. We can start having conversations. I know the environmentalists don't like to be civil about what's happening. They just think that we need to force solar and wind on everybody. I have a disagreement with that. I do believe that we should be on. We should have more nuke plants. Nuclear is the way to go. Produces far more energy in a smaller area. Can be. Yeah, if we do it right, we actually don't have little hidden switches in the solar panels that the Chinese could just turn off and shut our whole grid down. But don't worry about that. But let's have a civil conversation about how we can do this. And let's stop destroying the land to try to save the environment. So we'll get into things like ethanol. Ethanol, bad for the environment. Sorry, no two ways about that one. Ethanol is horrible for the environment. But let's have a civil conversation on how we solve this. So let's be civil, folks. Have a great evening. Hope you like this. Please like, subscribe, and see you on the next one.